The Kings close out their latest road trip on a bad note, but look to bounce back at home tonight. That and more on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years, also co-host of the Puck Podcast, a weekly NHL review show that's been putting out content for the last 18 years. New episode out today. And a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Well, the LA Kings were wrapping up a 5-game road trip this past Saturday in Seattle to take on the Kraken. The lineup for the LA Kings would be the same as we have seen recently. The forward group, we had Andre Kopitar with Adrian Kempe and Alex Turcotte. The second line, Quentin Byfield with Tanner Jeannot and Warren Foegele. The third line, Philip Deneau centering Kevin Fiala and Trevor Moore. The fourth line would have Trevor Lewis at center with Samuel Hellenius at the wing with another forward rotating in as the Kings continued with that 11-7 setup, 11 forward, 7 defensemen. On D, you had Mikey Anderson and Vladislav Gavrikov on the first pairing. Second pairing of Joel Edmondson and Brandt Clark. Jacob Overar and Jordan Spence with the third pairing, and Kyle Burrows was the extra defender. Darcy Kemper would get the start in net with David Riddick serving as the backup. Big question for me going into this game, would LA close out their 5-game road trip on a high note, or would they not finish with a winning record by having a letdown against Seattle? Well, unlike the Kings' previous game in Vancouver where the Kings scored on their first shot of the game, the exact opposite was the case in this one as the Kings allowed a goal on the first shot of the game, just 28 seconds into the game, and that would kind of be an indication of how this one would go. However, the Kings would tie it up on a power play goal from Adrian Kempe to even things up at 1-1. Then a bizarre play led to Seattle reclaiming the lead. There was a big hit on Warren Foegele as he crossed over the blue line into the Kraken zone. LA would kind of lose themselves in looking to respond to that. There were also a couple of unlucky things that happened. It led to an odd man rush, and Seattle would score on a 2-on-1 break to take a 2-1 lead. LA, though, would respond on a Jordan Spence point shot to make it 2-2 after a very interesting opening period. Second period, though, more like the first period for Seattle. They were the better team, the more aggressive team, had more chances, and they would end up getting the lead on a deflection shot into the net to make it 3-2. Unfortunately, the Kings had no answer in the third period, despite dominating the period as far as shots on goal. At one point, they outshot Seattle 17-0, but it didn't translate, unfortunately, to the Kings getting a goal to tie it up. The one shot on goal Seattle had was into an empty net to seal a 4-2 victory. The game stats in this one, shots on goal favored LA thanks to that big third period, 30-22. The special teams actually favored the Kings. LA was 1 for 2 on the power play, while Seattle was 0 for 3. Faceoffs favored LA 27-23. Hits favored Seattle 32-26. And block shots favored the Kraken 24-15. So what was good from an LA Kings team standpoint? Well, the third period. Great to see the Kings make a strong push to try and get back in the game. Unfortunately, it didn't equate to them getting a goal and tying up the game or taking the lead. Power play goal for the Kings for a second straight game. And this one was actually a legitimate power play goal. The goal they scored against Vancouver was on a 2-on-1 break, even though they did have the man advantage. So it goes down as a power play goal. This one was actually set up. The puck was worked around and they scored on the power play. Something they haven't done a lot, trying to set up a power play goal. This one was kind of textbook in that regard. We'll tell you the details on it a little bit later, but nice to see the Kings actually have a power play that they set up immediately after winning a faceoff and scored a goal. Hopefully this is a positive step toward the Kings power play being at least decent, because it's been pretty bad all year long. As for the penalty kill, continuing to be a strength for the LA Kings. So good special teams in this one and a great third period. What was not so good for LA from a team standpoint? Well, the first two periods. Something you don't see too often. And I guess we have to give some credit to the Kraken, but they outplayed the Kings in the first two periods. Now, they made LA work for everything. They basically did to the Kings what the Kings usually do to their opponents. That said, I did think LA was pretty sloppy in their own end, especially early on. They had chances to clear pucks out of the zone. They didn't. Now, part of it was due to the pressure that Seattle was putting on, but also part of it was just a lack of execution on the part of the Kings. The Kings also showed a lack of poise in what would turn out to be a huge goal in the game. That was the game, the play where Seattle put the big hit on Warren Foegele, and then the Kings reacted to that hit and kind of stopped playing. I get sticking up for your teammate. That's never a bad thing. However, you also have to find the right time to do it. Do it after the whistle, not while the play is going on. And unfortunately, even though maybe their heart was in the right place, the Kings ended up allowing an odd man rush because they were concerned about getting retaliation for the clean hit on Warren Foegele. And that turned out to be the game-winning goal. Coach's quote, this from head coach Jim Hiller. And this was about the Kings wrapping up their road trip with a 2-3 record. Jim Hiller's had to say about the road trip, quote, they were all good games, close games. I know the Vancouver game, the score wasn't close, but it felt close. I think the shots were even, and I think the play was pretty equal. I mean, we want to do better than that. It's not, or it's an unsuccessful road trip for us. So we have to just gather ourselves, get a rest, and put it behind us. There's more coming 2 days from now. And again, that was head coach Jim Hiller talking about this most recent road trip for the LA Kings. So what was the big takeaway from this game for me? Well, a very uncharacteristic performance by the LA Kings. Even in a couple of the losses they had on the road trip, in Edmonton and in Calgary, they played much better games. It was just a case of not getting the right bounce of the puck or not converting on a key moment here or there. But overall, the Kings played their game. They didn't do this in the game against Seattle, at least the first two periods. This was not the Kings team we're used to seeing. I don't know what the reason for that was. You could say, well, it was the last game of a road trip, but the Kings have been pretty good in the final game of road trips. So I don't have a good explanation other than perhaps to actually just give credit to the opponent. Seattle came out strong, kind of got the Kings on their heels a little bit, and it was hard for LA to kind of overcome that. The power play goal for the Kings, again, hopefully that's something that can be a positive going forward. I thought just looking at the trip as a whole, kind of disjointed in a way. A couple of quality wins over Winnipeg and Vancouver, a couple of really hard-fought losses to Calgary and Edmonton, and then just a overall not a good enough performance against Seattle. Kind of difficult to end a road trip like that. It does kind of leave a bit of a bitter taste in your mouth to end the trip like that. But in the end, the Kings are now back home. Mostly as far as the way they played, I thought there were a lot of positives. But again, just doesn't leave a great taste in your mouth when you end the game or end the road trip with a game like that. Up next, we'll look at some individual players in that game against Seattle. That is next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. The FanDuel app is easy to navigate, and the variety of bets keep everything exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around for your winnings. Whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking to add some extra excitement for the playoffs, FanDuel has you covered. We are down to the final four in the NFL. The Eagles are 5.5-point home favorites against the Commanders for the NFC title, and the Chiefs are a 1.5 favorite against the Bills in the AFC Championship game. Just visit FanDuel.com and join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, let's get into some of the individual players in that game against the Kraken, the 4-2 defeat in Seattle. And as always, we start with the goaltender, Darcy Kemper, allowing 3 goals on 21 shots, came into the game having allowed a total of 3 goals in the previous 3 games. First goal allowed was after a Kings turnover, a one-timer from the high slot that goes off the post and in. Definitely not a soft goal there. Second goal was that weird play we talked about, the Foegele hit where the Kings stopped playing, kind of. There was even Joel Edmondson lost his stick, and Warren Foegele broke his stick when he got hit. So you had a couple players on the ice who didn't have sticks. It was just a bizarre play. But again, that's a 2-on-1 break for the other team. That's not a soft goal allowed by Darcy Kemper. The second period, what would turn out to be the game winner, a wrist shot from the points that's deflected in. That's not a soft goal. So Kemper, I thought, played his game. I thought a lot of quality saves. Certainly didn't see any action at all in the third period. So most of it was in the first and second periods. Actually, all of it was in the first and second periods. Had strong saves, though, in those first 2 periods when Seattle was clearly the better team to keep the Kings within striking distance. Had one moment in the second period where 2 shots, point blank range, stopped them both. So a loss for Darcy Kemper, yes, but to me, not a subpar performance from Darcy Kemper this one as far as the goals that he allowed. Did want to mention Adrian Kempe and Andrei Kopitar got the Kings on the board with that power play goal. A nice passing play. Kopitar wins the face-off to start it all off. Kevin Fiala and Quentin Byfield were at the points. It was Kevin Fiala and Jordan Spence at the points. Fiala makes a pass down low to Kopitar. Byfield's in front of the net, kind of drawing some attention, and Kopi goes right through the crease to Kempe on the back door for basically a tap-in goal. So great execution by Kopitar and Kempe in particular on that power play goal. For Kempe, his team leading 22nd. For Kopitar, his team leading 30th assist on the season. Quentin Byfield didn't have any points in this one. Actually was a -3, but it wasn't because of his poor play, at least that I saw. He, I hope, takes some positives away from this game because he actually had some really high-quality scoring opportunities and unfortunately just missed. I know we're kind of getting tired of hearing that, but one of them went off the post in the first period. He really had a couple of grade A chances. He had a great pass to Warren Foegele for a shorthanded chance early in the game. Foegele unfortunately couldn't finish on a shot between his legs. Would have been a gorgeous goal. Second period, Q had a great scoring chance on a steal and set up from Philip Deneau and just missed the net. But for Q, my advice would be just keep doing what you're doing. You get chances like that and make good plays like that. Eventually, it should go in the net. So I know that statistically it didn't look great for Quentin Byfield, but I thought he had some great chances and just missed. So hopefully he takes the positives away from that loss. Kevin Fiala had a really good scoring chance in the third period, but Joey Decord, the Seattle netminder, made the save on him, a pad save. He had a lot of shots, did Kevin Fiala, in this game on net, especially in that third period. But people will probably remember the play at the end when the Kings had pulled the goalie for the extra attacker. They had some pressure on. Fiala's at the point, and he just whiffed on either a pass or a shot, and it goes the other way for an empty net goal to seal the victory for Seattle. That's obviously a tough moment for him, a bit of an embarrassing moment for him. I didn't think he had a terrible game, but that moment, again, is hard to overcome where you just kind of whiff and it goes the other way. Warren Foegele had a good game, but didn't convert on the best scoring chance for the Kings to tie it up in the third period. Shorthanded breakaway, and unfortunately, he just could not finish. A key moment in the game, and a key moment again for the a great chance for the Kings. If they score that goal, maybe it's a different outcome. But unfortunate for Warren Foegele, who always plays hard, but unfortunately in that situation needed a goal from him in that moment, and he could not convert. Alex Turcotte, there's no report on an injury for Turcotte, but I noticed in the opening seconds of the game, he took a reverse hit and got shaken up. If you don't know what a reverse hit is, it's you're playing the puck carrier. He has the puck, but he puts the hit on you, and it can be a very kind of a surprising thing. Some players are not expecting it. You're playing defense on a guy and suddenly he puts a shoulder into you. You kind of expect him not to do that when he has the puck. But I noticed it did shake up Alex Turcotte. And of course, wouldn't you know it, seconds later, he gets the puck to him to try and clear the zone and get it out of danger. And he just couldn't get it out of his skates, turns it over, and it ended up being the first goal of the game for Seattle. Turcotte only played 13 minutes and 47 seconds. And late in the game, he was replaced by Brandt Clark, which we'll talk more about in a second. So didn't see anything on the injury report today that Turcotte is hurt. But maybe it was a factor that he just kind of got shaken up for that game, but is okay to go forward. But I'm not sure about that. Just an observation I had with Alex Turcotte because he wasn't really noticeable and didn't play a lot late in the game. I mentioned Brandt Clark, and I know Jim Hiller, for better or for worse, mostly for the better, likes to try different things. And he certainly did with Brandt Clark in this game. In the third period, with the Kings looking to tie it up down a goal, he tried Brandt Clark at forward. And I got to be honest, I really didn't get this move because while Brandt Clark is a offensive-minded defenseman, he's not exactly Cale Makar or Quinn Hughes, like a couple of defensemen who are really, really skilled and proven scorers at the NHL level. He's still trying to figure things out. He's more of a setup guy than a finisher. I appreciate Jim Hiller trying different things. I really do. This one, though, seemed really odd. And Clark said afterwards that he was very surprised by it, certainly wasn't ready for it. Now, he actually did have a decent deflection on a shot that the save was made on. So I will give him that. But hard to believe that Brandt Clark at forward is better than some of the other options. Like, I got to believe Samuel Helenius, put him on the top line and give him a chance. I mean, he's a forward. He knows how to put the puck in the net better than Brandt Clark, even though I know Brandt Clark, for a defenseman, has some nice offensive skills. But I just thought, again, I won't, it's not that big of a criticism. It was an odd thing to try. But again, Jim Hiller does try different things, and we got to give him that. Jordan Spence, one move that Hiller made that I liked a lot was putting Jordan Spence as the quarterback on the number one power play unit. And while Spence is not as talented offensively as Brandt Clark, who he replaced, he is more direct with the puck. And I think the Kings definitely need some of that on their power play, generally speaking. I've talked about how the Kings kind of need to get to basics, in my opinion, when they're on the power play. Forget about making the great, beautiful passing plays, although they did on the power play in this game. But I think overall, until they can kind of figure things out, get it to the point, shoot the puck on net, go to the net, look for deflections, look for rebounds. I think that's their best bet on the power play right now. Just keep it simple. And Jordan Spence keeps it simple. Brandt Clark wants to skate around, wants to be creative, wants to make a great pass, and that's fine. But I just don't think that's what the Kings need right now. And Spence is going to get it, and he's going to shoot it for the most part. And he scored a goal in this game doing exactly that. Now, it wasn't on the power play. It was just with him taking his normal defensive shift. But again, I think that is what Jim Hiller sees in Jordan Spence. And that's why he put him in that role. And I think that's the right move. I think for the time being, Jordan Spence should be the quarterback on the number one power play unit. And his teammates all know what he's going to do. If he gets an open lane to shoot the puck, he's going to shoot it on net. And hopefully that helps the Kings kind of to simplify things a little bit on the power play. So I think Spence, I hope, will stay in that role until Drew Doughty returns, which could still be a little ways away, but we do have an update coming up on Drew Doughty. As far as some of the individual numbers in this game against Seattle, Adrian Kempe and Jordan Stahl had your goals. Andre Kopitar, Kevin Fiala, Philip Deneau, Trevor Moore had your assists. Trevor Moore, the only Kings player who was a plus player in this game at a +1. Quinn Byfield was a -3, but I don't think that was actually indicative of the game that he played. He just was a little bit unlucky being on the ice when some goals were scored. He was a part of that Warren Fogle hit where he was trying to get retaliation. But anyway, 9 players for the Kings were minus players, including Mikey Anderson and Vladislav Gavrikov, each a -2. That does not happen often. Kevin Fiala had 10 shots on goal. That's a lot of shots. You cannot say Kevin was not looking for his shot in this one. Alex Turcotte and Jordan Spence each had 3 blocked shots to lead the team. Tanner Jeannot had 8 hits in this game. Also got into a fight. So Tanner Jeannot is certainly doing his job, his part. Vladislav Gavrikov led the Kings in ice time with 24 minutes and 47 seconds. Anze Kopitar was the Kings' best player in the faceoff circle, winning 13 and losing 9. All right, so the Kings are back home for a quick 2-game homestand starting tonight. We will preview Kings versus Penguins here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. The Stanley Cup, the Super Bowl, the Olympics. The world's top athletes get to play in these top-level sporting events thanks to one thing, teamwork. And teamwork can also protect your financial legacy and your family's future. SelectQuote's licensed insurance agents are the perfect teammates when shopping for customized, affordable life insurance. They can find you the right policy to keep your financial legacy safe in your family's end zone. SelectQuote is one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience, helping over 2 million customers find over $700 billion in coverage since 1985. Other life insurance brokers offering personalized, one-size-fits-all policies that may cost you more and cover you less, while SelectQuote's licensed insurance agents work with you to tailor your life insurance policy for your individual needs in as little as 15 minutes. Get the right life insurance for you for less at selectquote.com/LockedOnNHL. That's selectquote.com/LockedOnNHL today to get started. That's selectquote.com/LockedOnNHL. All right, so the Kings are back home for a mini 2-game homestand. Kings host the Penguins tonight, and then they have the defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers on Wednesday. And then it's back out on the road for another 5-game road trip against some pretty tough opponents. But let's focus on tonight. The LA Kings check in with a record of 25-13-5. They enter the night 3rd in the Pacific Division, 7th in the Western Conference, and 12th in the NHL with 55 points in 43 games. Kings have played the fewest games in the NHL so far this season, so they do have some opportunities to make up games with games in hand and gain some standings, some points in the standings if they can win. Kings are coming off, of course, the 4-2 loss in Seattle on Saturday. LA is 14-2-1 on home ice this season. That is the best home ice winning percentage in the NHL. Tonight's opponent, the Pittsburgh Penguins, are 19-21-8 on the season. The Penguins are 7th in the 8-team Metropolitan Division, 14th in the 15-team Eastern Conference, and 24th in the NHL. They've got 46 points in 48 games. Pittsburgh not having a great season, but they are still actually in the hunt for a wild card spot in the East. So they're playing for something. Just looking at their season, they had a 6-game losing skid early. They then lost 5 of 6 before winning 4 in a row. They were a 500 team for most of the month of December, but from December 31st to now, over their last 10 games, they have a 2-5-3 record. Now, the Penguins played this past Saturday in Washington, lost to the NHL's top team, the Capitals, by a score of 4-1. As for the Kings individually, they're led by Adrian Kempe in goals with 22. Also 42 points for Juice, tied with Anze Kopitar for the team lead. The Penguins are led by future Hall of Famer Sidney Crosby. He's got 49 points. Their leading goal scorer is former Duck Ricard Raquel. He's got 23 goals, but more on him coming up in a moment. Kings are expected to go with Darcy Kemper in net. Checks in with a 13-4-5 record, 2.10 goals against average. That's 3rd in the NHL. And a .922 save percentage. That's 4th in the NHL. Penguins are expected to go with Alex Nedeljkovic in net. He's 8-7-4 on the season, 3.33 goals against average at .890 save percentage. He's just 1-5-3 on the road this season with a 3.63 goals against average and an .877 save percentage. However, in his last start, he allowed just 2 goals on 42 shots in a 5-2 win over Buffalo, and in the process became the 14th goalie in NHL history to score a goal and became the first goalie in NHL history to have a goal and an assist in the same game. So he's coming in on a high note. Also, he was recently named the team's #1 goalie after veteran Tristan Jarry was placed on waivers and sent down to the AHL. Checking the matchup team-wise by the numbers, Kings are 16th in the league in goals scored per game. Kings are scoring 2.98 goals per game. Penguins are right behind the Kings, 17th in the league at 2.96. Kings are now number 2 in the NHL in goals allowed per game at 2.42. Penguins are dead last in the NHL, 32nd. They are allowing 3.65 goals per game. Kings power play is 29th in the NHL, 16%. Penguins are 5th in the league on the power play, 26.6%. LA is 5th in the league on the penalty kill, 83.2%. Penguins are 14th in the NHL on the PK, 79.1%. As for injuries for the Kings, according to Kings insider Zach Dooley, both Drew Doughty and Alex Laferriere were on the ice this morning, taking part in team practice, both wearing red non-contact jerseys. Dooley also reported over the weekend that Laferriere might be out a bit more than day-to-day. For Pittsburgh, their leading goal scorer, Rickard Rakell, has left the team. He will not play tonight. He has left the team for what they called family reasons. So hopefully everything's okay with that. But again, for Pittsburgh, their leading goal scorer, Rickard Rakell, not playing tonight against the Kings. So great to have the Kings back home, but the first game back, it can be a little tricky sometimes. I've heard when players come back home after a long road trip, it's kind of hard to focus because once you get home, it's all the realities of what's going on at home. And if you're a family man with kids, that's, I don't want to say stressful, but it takes up your time. It's not like you come home and you're just relaxing. You're dealing with, your family stuff. That said, the 2 times this year the Kings have come back from a trip longer than 2 games, they are 2-0 in that first game back. So look for the Kings to obviously have a much better start against Seattle. Pittsburgh has some very talented offensive players, Sidney Crosby, Brian Rust, Evgeny Malkin. Even their defensive stars are offensive players like Chris Letang and Erik Karlsson. But Pittsburgh is downright a bad offensive team with questionable goaltending. So hopefully the Kings can take advantage of that. It'll be the Kings' defense against the Penguins' offense. It'll be LA's penalty kill against Pittsburgh's power play. This is a winnable game for the Kings and might be the most winnable game for them for a while because they have some quality opponents coming up. So big game for tonight. Some news real quick. The Kings-Flames game that was postponed because of the fires in Los Angeles has been rescheduled for Thursday, April the 17th. It's basically a game added on to the end of the schedule. My understanding is, I believe, not 100% on this, but I believe if that game is determined to have no impact in the standings, I believe they won't play that game. I'm not 100% on that. And I know if you've got tickets for that game, that's something you need to inquire about. But I believe if there's no impact on the standings in that game, that they won't play it because no sense in somebody getting hurt in what is essentially a meaningless game. I believe that's the case. There have been snowed out games or games because of different things in the past, and I'm pretty sure they don't do that unless the game means something. So that anyway, we'll see. Added that game on the end of the season. Also, if you didn't see it on social media, Kings have a very cool new logo at center ice for tonight's game, and I assume the near future. It's the LA Fire Department logo at center ice. Saluting the firemen and the first responders who have worked so hard battling the fires. So that's awesome. Should be a special night. I'm sure there'll be some tributes, some video presentations talking about the fires, and I'm sure the crowd and the team will be glad to have the team back, and hopefully it'll all add up to a big performance and a big win. I did want to say real quick, looking at the Pacific Division standings going into the week, that loss to the Kraken hurt the Kings in more ways than one because both Vegas and Edmonton lost the same night. So the Kings with a win could have gained some ground. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. Vegas and Edmonton are tied for first in the Pacific. They both have 61 points. They both have identical records of 29, 14, and 3. So whoever wins the Pacific, the second place team is the team the Kings would likely play in the first round of the playoffs as it stands right now. So it may not actually be the Edmonton Oilers. It could be the Vegas Golden Knights. We'll see. Those two teams battling it out for the top spot. And Vegas is struggling right now. They've lost 4 of their last 5. Meanwhile, the Kings, again, 55 points, so they are 6 points back of both Edmonton and Vegas. LA is 4 points up on Calgary for that third spot in the Pacific Division. All right, for you everydayers, those of you that listen and watch Locked On LA Kings every day, Tuesday, we'll obviously have a recap of the Kings-Penguins game. Wednesday, we're looking to have a special guest. Can't confirm who that might be as of yet. That game, or that day, I should say, we'll have a guest and also preview that night's Kings-Florida Panthers game. Thursday, we recap that game, and then on Friday, have another Kings fan feedback show. If you want to get an email in for the feedback show, it's lockedoneddie@gmail.com, EDDIE. Also, you can post your thoughts if you're watching on YouTube in the comments section. Stay interactive with the show on social media, X, Twitter, and Instagram. We're at Locked On LA Kings. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you, as always, for listening and watching this episode of Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you tomorrow. And as always, go Kings, go.